like to make a series of lectures about history lectures about the Jews of Ashkenaz, Jews of German descent. First, why would it be called Ashkenaz? Well, we know that the Jews had a tendency to give the names of where they resided, or where they came. They try to find a biblical reference to that place where they are residing for the moment. Since the Jews had come to this Germanic lands, they found that the place that they're living in should be called Ashkenaz. Most historians believe that the reason for that would be is the reference in Genesis 10, Bereshis Yud. It says, these are the children of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Yafet. And then it goes on to say the children and the nations that came from them. Bnei Yafet, it says Goyme Umogog. Yafet had a bunch of sons. The first one was called Gomer. And in the next verse, in verse 3, it says Bnei Gomer, and the children of Gomer, Ashkenaz, Rifas, Togarmo. And the Radak explains that Gomer, Ashkenaz would mean, he says that's what the people call Almania. Almania means Germany, as we'll see later on when we discuss why it's called Almania. And Rifas would be Sa'adia Gaon. He brings from Sa'adia Gaon would be the Gauls, that would be the French. Another reference would be also in the Talmuds, when the Talmud mentions a few times Gemar Mieshel Edom, and the Emden, Yaakov Emden, and also the Gaon for Vilnius say that it should be really amended to read not Germania but Germania Shel Edom, and that would be also a corruption of the word Gomer. That's why the Jews got the word from Gomer, which they turned into Germany, which turns into Ashkenaz, and that's why they called this place where they were living Ashkenaz. How did they get the notion that the people are called Germany? Is the Romans actually gave them the name, the Germanic tribes. They named the place Germania, and we'll discuss in a minute what it is. Now that's why it's called Ashkenaz. That's why the Jews called them Ashkenaz. But just to understand, when did the Jews first arrive in the lands along the Rhine? Along the Rhine. There's cities like Speyer, Vermaisa, Magenza, and Cologne, and others along the river. So interesting, it says in the Sefer Me'ira Senayim, he asks why were the Jews of Worms, he speaks of Worms in particular, because that's where the Jews actually survived all the years. In Magenza there was expelled also from Worms, but Worms had almost a continuous community all along. So he asks, why were the Jews of Worms singled out from that every couple of years, every 50 years, there's another calamity befalls them. So he says that when he's trying to explain that, is that the Jews were living here at the time of the first temple. And Ezra HaSofer, the famous Ezra from the scriptures, he asks the Jews, he sends a letter to the Jews of Ashkenaz. He says, Jews of Worms, you have to come, of Magenza, of the Rhine, you have to come back to Jerusalem. And they say, no, we don't need it. You have your Jerusalem, we have ours. We're staying where we are. Well, that's like a legend, because it's hard to believe that Jews were living all the way back at that time. But that's what it's meant. The Jews at least held that their ancestry goes way back. There is an explanation to why the Jews try to explain that they were in the lands so early on, although it's hard to believe that the Jews were living so far north of the Alps at that time. So an explanation would be is that we know from that famous verse in Matthew that says when the Nazarene was being nailed by Pontius Pilate, So Pontius Pilate asked the Jews, what do you think I should do with him? They said, yeah, take him, kill him. And he said, are you sure? He says, let his blood be on our hands forever, for all generations. Now this verse in Matthew 27 was the cause of untold Jewish misery for a lot of years, because the church used it for saying, yeah, you see the Jews, they committed deicide, and a lot of terrible things happened to Jews throughout the ages because of this verse. Now, the Jews living in the Rhineland tried to explain to the Gentiles, hey, we weren't even there. We weren't in Jerusalem when this happened. We were way back in Germany when this all happened. We weren't even there. That's why they invented a legend, trying to say that their population here in the Rhine, living in the Rhine, dates way back to ancient times, even before the time of the Nazarene.